What inspired you to write The Wealth Money Can't Buy?
For about 15 years, I've been mentoring billionaires. A lot of these people are cash rich, but they're life poor. I think our society has almost programmed us to think that winning and wealth is all about how much money you have in the bank.
Robin Sharma. His books have inspired millions worldwide.
If you have a great family life, you have a currency money can't buy. Consistency is the mother of mastery. How you live each day, the days become weeks, the weeks become months, the months become years, the years become a lifetime. Try to do those little wins every day. Those will become victory that you'll be very proud of at the end of your life. We're focusing on so many personal Mount Everests, we don't get great at any one of them. The best way to start is to start. We often think that genius is about genetics, and it really is much more about practice, commitment, focus, hard work. When we see the great artists, the great athletes, the great human beings, we fall into an intellectual trap that these people are cut from a different cloth, and that's just not true. Winning at someone else's version of winning is losing. True winning is following your own drumbeat, even if the world thinks you're crazy.
Hi, I'm Abby Clancy and welcome to Exhibit A. This week's guest is international best-selling author and leadership expert, Robin Sharma. This episode, for a fact, will change your life. Of course, I know who you are, but for everyone listening, who is Robin Sharma?
Well, first of all, Abby, thank you so much for having me on your show.
That was so exciting.
And I just learned that you are top 5, 1 week out. So congratulations to you. I would describe myself as a family man, a creative person, and a human being.
What single habit has significantly impacted your success?
The 5 a.m. club, stripping out energy vampires, spending more time learning and growing versus watching TV and playing with my phone.
What is the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Leaving my job as a litigation lawyer and self-publishing a book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari in a 24-hour copy shop, and then quitting my job and following this mission.
What does the first hour of your day look like?
45 minutes MVP. In sports circles, as you know, Abby, MVP is most valuable player. In my methodology, it's meditation, visualization, and prayer. 45 minutes, meditation, visualization, and prayer. For me, it's been a total game changer for my clients. It's helped them beat insecurity, be much more grounded, present, and much more focused.
And what would you say to someone who go, God, I haven't got time. I haven't got 45 minutes to do that in my day?
I would offer the words of Mahatma Gandhi. He said, I have much to accomplish today. Therefore, I must meditate 2 hours rather than 1.
What one thing you believe is true that most people would disagree with?
Wow. That getting up before the sun to spend time working on your mindset, heart set, health set, and soul set, and making yourself stronger and building intimacy with your gifts and your talents is the one move that changes every move.
What was the worst piece of advice you hear or that's been dispersed into the world?
I think the worst piece of advice is be reasonable. I think your instinct is so much more powerful than your intellect. And yet when you have a disruptive idea, whether it's to start a business, write a book, find true love, run a marathon, initiate a spiritual project, when we share it with people, because a lot of people unfortunately are resigned to average, people will say, that's impossible. That could never happen. Be reasonable. And it makes me think of what George Bernard Shaw once said, one of my favorite quotes. He said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world.
Yeah.
The unreasonable one persists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man, obviously woman, etc. But I think it's just bad advice to be reasonable. I mean, Picasso wasn't reasonable. Michelangelo wasn't reasonable. The great visionaries were not reasonable.
What is your one goal for this year?
My one goal for the year, well, I think I have a few. Definitely, I want to keep building myself and making myself a better person. I think that your relationship with yourself is the primary relationship that determines every other relationship. So continuing to work on myself. Second thing I want to do is I want to get the Wealth Money Can't Buy out to as many people as possible. I spent a year of my life. It was a devotion that became an obsession to try to make this book as best as I can make it. And I really believe it's, there's this word, the zeitgeist. And I think it's a time right now where these are the short questions, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I'll be really quick and say, I want to get the book out to as many people as possible because I think it'll really help.
What was one skill that you wish you could master instantly?
Cooking cacio e pepe.
I saw you said you couldn't cook.
I can't. That's why I want to master it. That's why it's one of my favorite dishes, and it is so simple in terms of ingredients, but the calibration and timing is so hard.
Do you do that when you go to a restaurant? You go, God, this is so easy to make. This I wish I could make it at home because I'm the same. I recently worked with these Michelin star chefs, and I thought I could cook, and it turns out that I am rubbish. When you are with people who are at the top of their game, it kind of exposes your weaknesses or lack of knowledge.
And I would actually
in their field.
And I would actually say it takes 30 years of practice to make something simple. I mean, Mark Twain said, "Sorry, I wrote you a long letter. I didn't have time to write you a short one." Oh. And I think, you can see, I love art, and you can see a great master because you look at the master's painting and you say, my kid could have done that.
Yeah.
And it's the same with food. This is so simple. I could have done this. Why does this restaurant have a 3 Michelin star reputation? But it often takes 30 years to figure out how to strip away the non-essentials and focus on what's most important.
What's your favorite form of self-care?
Wow. So many. Nature walks almost every day. Journaling has transformed my life. In the 5M Club, I wrote about the 2 massage protocol. Massages are incredible.
Yeah.
And I would say MVP, meditation, visualization, and prayer.
I bet your nature walks are a lot less stressful than mine. So yesterday, it was torrential rain. I took my 4 kids from age 4 to 13, 2 dogs, one of them who kept running away and trying to join other families. I thought in my head, I'm going to start the day. We live in Surrey, a beautiful countryside, up fabulous walk. And at the end of it, there's a campfire where you can roast marshmallow and get hot chocolate. And it was absolute hell. Dog ran away. My son got smoke in his eye. The other one fell off a log into a puddle of muddy water. And I was like, kind of an Instagram versus reality moment.
Yes.
But you know what? I was calm because of reading your book and, these kind of methods I'm using to change my life and make me a less stressy out person. And it does work. So thanks.
Well, you're welcome. And yes, my nature walks are much less stressful than yours. Mine are very zen. And, my kids are older. We just celebrated my son's 30th birthday.
Oh, wow.
My daughter's 28, so I get to do nature walks alone. Yeah. But sometimes I bring Super Chum. I wrote about Super Chum in The Wealth Money Can't Buy. This is my 5-pound Yorkie Chihuahua, and I call her Super Chum because that's what she is. She's with me all the time.
Don't see you as a Chihuahua guy.
I never thought I never thought I would have a Chihuahua. I thought it would be, like a Hungarian Vizsla or something, like maybe a dog that was, a racer or something like that. But my partner Elle, it was her dog, and she just fell in love with Holly the first time she saw her, and then when Elle and I got together, Holly and I just bonded incredibly. And I just, there's a cartoon that I think about, and it's this little Chihuahua looking in a pond and seeing their shadow or their image, and it's this huge lion. And that's what Holly is. I think she thinks she's a lion.
Yeah, gorgeous. That is so nice. It's like my husband with our little, he walks our black lab and then is carrying the fluffy Cavapoo, and he's like 2 meters high. Yeah. He looks ridiculous, his fluffy little dog. Who or what inspires you the most?
Well, I'm really blessed, Abby, because my 86-year-old father, he'll be 86 in June, but I flew my father to London and my mom to be here this week while I'm doing media here in London. And My father is a great hero in my life. He's an incredibly wise person. He inspires me deeply. My mom always says, you talk so much about your father, what about me? So I would also say my mother has been a great influence in my life. My life changed a number of years ago when I stood in Nelson Mandela's prison cell.
Mm.
You know, and I know these are the short questions. So Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Michelangelo.
If you could change one thing about the world, what would it be?
That too many people have forgotten we've been born into genius and we've resigned ourselves into mediocrity. When we see the great artists, the great athletes, the great human beings, the great creatives, we fall into a cognitive or intellectual trap that these people are cut from a different cloth, and that's just not true.
Mm.
And so I wish people would just own their power versus complaining or being negative and realize how powerful they are. And that if they install the right beliefs, the right emotional architecture, the right daily habits and routines, they can make profound changes, not in a day, but over time.
And do you think, because my husband is a athlete, like he played for England, he's an incredible footballer, and he said, you know, the difference between him and the super elite is that he could celebrate the small wins, whereas the top tier athletes would, like, you know, that's done, always focusing on the next thing.
I think that's right. I think I've mentored a lot of professional athletes and sports icons, and you're completely right. A lot of these people, last year's championship performance is this year's baseline starting point.
Yeah.
They're not in the business of championships. They're in the business of dynasties. Nothing is ever enough. You get to one mountaintop, they're looking for the next mountaintop. I think about Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
He realized when he got in the NBA, he thought everyone is going to be working really hard. And then he said, I realized a lot of people got in the NBA and they started to coast.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, I realized that if I would get up at 4 o'clock, do a practice right after that, go home, have some breakfast, do another practice later in the morning, go home, have some lunch, handle another few things, do another practice later in the afternoon, go home, have dinner, do one final practice. To use his words, after 4 or 5 years, I would build an advantage that was so unbeatable that no one in the league could ever catch up.
Yeah.
And I think the point is we often think that genius is about genetics, and it really is much more about practice, commitment, focus, hard work, etc.
Yeah. You've mentored CEOs, billionaires, elite athletes, sportsmen. What inspired you to write The Wealth Money Can't Buy?
Well, for about 15 years, I've been mentoring billionaires, and I created this model to help them. A lot of these people are cash rich, but they're life poor. And I think our society has almost programmed us to think that winning and wealth is all about how much money you have in the bank, the size of your yacht, and the strength of your stock portfolio. And I think that has a lot of, not only the super rich, I think it has a lot of us hustling and grinding, chasing material possessions and a lot of money when we're missing out on some of the most important things in life. I want to be super clear. Money is actually one of the 8 forms of wealth they talk about in the book. Nothing wrong with having nice things. Making money is absolutely important, pays the bills, puts food on the family table, allows us to do things for people we love. It's one of the forms of wealth. But there are 7 other forms of wealth that if we miss them, we absolutely miss living our richest life. There's one chapter in the book called The Multi-Billionaire in the Very Empty Mansion. And so I was invited to mentor this billionaire. You would know him, very famous mogul tycoon. And so I flew to his country, went to his city, showed up at his house. There was an aide at the door who greeted me. Walked through his house, most beautiful art collection you could ever see. Indoor car collection, fantastic cars.
Wow.
Another aide said, okay, go downstairs. His office is at the end of the hallway. I went down the stairs. I could smell cigar smoke. I listened to Metallica's As the bell tolls playing, walk down the hallway, open up the door, and there is the famous tycoon. So for 2 hours, he shared how he scaled his businesses, how he made his money, his yachts, et cetera, et cetera. And after 2 hours, I asked him, so who do you get to share this with? Long pause. I'm all alone.
Yeah.
And so I think there are a lot of people who have a lot of money or people chasing money, and they're missing out on things like family, like wellness, like mystery, like craft, the things I talk about in the book. Yeah. So Jim Carrey, the Hollywood legend, said it really well. He said, I wish everyone could be rich and famous to realize it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. I think that the 8 hidden habits in your book are so powerful. And why do you call them hidden? Is it because they're not obvious to us as humans? You know?
Exactly. You know, a lot of us have riches right in front of us and we don't even notice them.
Yeah.
If you have a great family life, you have a currency money can't buy. You don't believe me or someone doesn't believe me, lose your loved one. Yeah. I think it was Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese poet. He said something so profound. He said, love knows not its measure until the moment of separation. So often we take the people we love the most for granted until we lose them. Yeah. So if you have a great family life, if you have someone to share life with that gets you, that celebrates you, you have a wealth money can't buy. If you have 3 great friends, the kind of friends who you can be yourself with, laugh with, cry with, you haven't seen them for a few years, you meet them, it's like you finish the last sentence and start the next one. If you have 3 great friends, the kind of friends you say, I'm in a foreign country, I'm in trouble, and they say,
I'll be
it's
there.
3 in the morning, I'm on the next plane.
Yeah, of course.
You are a rich person. So I think we live in a society where the programming goes deep. We say, look at the billionaire on the front of the magazine, and we put them on a pedestal. But what about the gardener who keeps the neighborhood clean? Yeah. What about the teacher who raises kids to do amazing things? What about one of the richest people I've ever met was my ski instructor. And one day going up the chairlift, he said, Robin, us ski instructors aren't rich, but we have rich lives.
Yeah. It's recognizing those things. And because I have friends in my life who, you know, if I'm happy in my home, they're like, oh, you're so boring, you're a grandma, you don't want to go out, why do you want to stay in with kids? And you know, that kind of thing. It's noticing those toxic people who kind of tell you that these things are not enough.
I think you have to trust how you feel. You have to trust your instincts. I think we have incredible wisdom within us. And I think the person who lives a great life is the person who leaves the crowd and thinks for themselves.
And striking up that balance between wanting to pursue that career, pursue that job, and, you know, have the family. Is it possible to have both?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of us we're maximalists versus minimalists. And I think a lot of people are chasing so many different things.
Yeah.
So at work, we're taking on so many projects, we don't master any project. In our personal lives, we try to have 5,000 or 10,000 digital friends versus having 3 great friends. We're focusing on so many personal Mount Everests, we don't get great at any one of them. And so I think having the discipline and the wisdom to be a minimalist and having a few good friends when you're at work, focus on one project, not having the discipline to set some red lines and set some boundaries.
Yeah.
And having the confidence to say no to a lot of social invitations so you have time to do the few things that are important. I think it's very powerful. I mean, you know, every morning I ask myself 5 questions in my journaling, and I'll offer them to your viewers in the spirit of service.
Thank you.
So the 5 questions I ask myself, number 1, I ask myself, what am I grateful for? Gratitude is the antidote to fear. Lots of great science saying that the world's happiest people practice deliberate gratitude. That's not once a year, it's every day. So practicing.
And how do you do that?
It's a great question. So in terms of tactics, you pull out your journal and you just you ask yourself the question, what am I grateful for? And you try to find things that you're taking for granted. Oh, I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head, if you have a roof over your head. Oh, I'm grateful to do work that can make a difference. Oh, I'm grateful that I have 2 legs. It's like the Persian proverb. I cursed the fact I had no shoes until I saw the man who had no feet. So first question I asked myself, what am I grateful for? Second question, where am I winning? So the human brain has a negativity bias, and what it means is we totally survey our environment for threats.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking for what's not working. We're always looking for what's wrong. So asking yourself that second question, where am I winning, trains your brain to focus on the positive things. That protects your hope, keeps your momentum high, gives you energy. Third question, what will I let go of? So if you haven't forgiven someone, it's like we're carrying them with us through life on our backs.
Yeah.
So that question every morning, what will I let go of? You don't become what I call in the book a resentment collector. Fourth question, what does my ideal day ahead look like? A lot of us wake up in the morning, start living our life like a 5-alarm fire, and we're chasing the day. But asking yourself, ideally, while the rest of the world is asleep in the morning, what does my ideal day ahead look like? Oh, it means I'm going to be positive. I will focus. I will put down my phone. Here's what I'll eat. I'll have a family dinner. In the evening, I'll read a little bit. That will give you the clarity and the intention to handcraft a great day. And your days are your life in miniature. So as you live each day, so you live your life. Fifth question. Every morning I ask myself, what do I need to hear at the end? Could you imagine every morning you remind yourself about how you will have wished you will have lived at the end of your life? And then each day becomes a platform to get you closer to where you want to be.
I think, do you think fear holds people back a lot with this? Because what was the second point you made there? Sorry.
Where am I winning?
Where am I winning? So is that fear? Is that the opposite to fear? Because fear puts people off a lot of things. Because for me, what's going to go wrong? All of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we do have a lot of fear. What I would say is, one of the chapters of the book recommends that every 3 months we push ourselves to learn a new skill. And I think a lot of our fears are programmed. In many ways, our early caregivers pass on the beliefs and the fears that they've learned from their parents. Most parents do their best.
Yeah.
And yet our parents teach us how the world works. And so I know from my clients, I've had clients who say, oh, don't dream too big, you'll be laughed at, et cetera, et cetera. We pick up all of these scarcity scars and these limitations, and they're taught to us. If you look at the world, we are taught to play small.
Yes.
We are, when we're little kids, we have a sparkle in our eye. Here's a great idea, which is adults are nothing more than deteriorated children. So when we were kids, we wanted to be an astronaut. We believed in ourselves. We spoke with our own voice. We talked the way we wanted to talk. And we really didn't care if people laughed at us.
Dancing there naked.
We dance,
and then
we
it goes
play.
like that as you get older, doesn't it?
Right? And we connect. And we have these very brave ideals. And then as we go through life, the world teaches us to fear.
Why?
Well, I think it's a hard world at times. We live in an age of wars and pandemic and polycrisis and cost of living. And I think the world can either make you bitter or it can open you up. I think we all have to be, I think it's important we all don't let the difficulties in the world right now prevent us from being possibilitarians. Of course, it's a hard time. I don't subscribe to toxic optimism in any way. I think that's really dangerous. I wrote a book, my previous book, Before the Wealth Money Can't Buy, there was a chapter called The Big Lie of Positive Thinking. I think the idea that even if you're going through tragedy, shift to positive thinking is dangerous because you swallow the anger and the shame and the very real emotions that any human being would feel going through a difficult time. Yeah. So if we feel scared right now, I think you'd be a psychopath not to be scared in the world right now.
Yeah.
Having said that, process through it and then continue. And release the energy vampires who might be bringing you down. And I think the best thing you could do for the world right now is to become your greatest self. And the best thing you could do for the world right now is do what lights you up. And the best thing you could do in the world right now is shift from scarcity to generosity and be the kindest, most giving person in your neighborhood so you're a light versus contributing to the darkness.
The 8 hidden habits to live your richest life. Can you talk me through those?
Sure. So the first one is growth.
Growth.
A person and a human being, well, they're both the same thing, but it's a human,
Well.
a human being who is on a path of discovering who they truly are. A human being who is doing the work to release their fears and insecurities and limitations and becoming stronger and the highest version of their greatest vision. Isn't that a rich person?
Yeah.
Second form of wealth is wellness. Our society doesn't go, oh, you are healthy. Congratulations. You have money in the bank, so to speak. It makes me think of being in Qatar a number of years ago, and someone at one of my live events handed me a piece of paper and said, Robin, please read this in your hotel room later tonight, which I did. And it said, health is the crown on the well person's head that only the ill person can see. And in one wisdom tradition, they say, when we are young, we would sacrifice our health for wealth.
Yes.
And when we get old and discover what life is all about, we would sacrifice all of our wealth for one day of good health. So wellness is number 2. Number 3, family. Family, like if you have a rich family life, you're a rich human being.
Yes.
Fourth form of wealth, craft. Hard work in our world right now almost is a dirty word or 2 dirty words. But if you go to work and you use it as a platform for purpose. If you go to work, whether you are a grave digger, whether you are an astronaut, whether you are a CEO, whether you're a pizza maker, whether you are a coder, if you see your work as a chance to pursue mastery, you will find a lot of joy and energy that most people don't have. Fifth form of wealth, money. As I mentioned at the outset, money is important. So it's the fifth form of wealth. Finding financial freedom allows you to do amazing things for your family. It can cut back on some of your problems, and it can help you help people. Sixth form of wealth, community. You become your social network. So stripping out the energy vampires and the dream stealers and filling your life with people whose lives you want to be living is wealth money can't buy. Seventh form of wealth, adventure. Don't lose the sparkle in your eye. Find the simple of graces. Get that sense of adventure back. And the eighth form of wealth, which is service. Mahatma Gandhi said, lose yourself in service of others and you'll find yourself. So being a gift giver and being on a mission to leave people better than you found them will give you a currency money can't buy.
It's funny that these are called hidden habits because to me, they all make total sense. Like they're clear. Like for me, I don't want to experience anything. You know, I've been quite fortunate in my life and event money, and I can go to the best restaurant or the best hotel. I don't want to go unless my mum's with me, my sister, you know, my friends to share it with me. Because as you say, what is the point in being in these places if you're alone? Given to other people, it's always makes you feel so much better about yourself. And for our listeners, what are the first steps they can do to recognize these things and apply it to their daily lives and change?
Well, the first thing I would say is life's most valuable things aren't things.
Yeah.
And I think you're totally right. Like, why go to a restaurant if you don't have the people you love with you? No. Having said that, there's a chapter in The Wealth Money Can't Buy about the importance of eating alone or the power of eating alone to move through your fears. And it's an exercise almost in this world where people can often feel insecure eating alone. I'm encouraging people, go in there, eat alone, leave your phone at home.
I can't do anything alone.
I know. It's so hard.
I can't sleep in a bed on my own. I can't stay in a hotel overnight on my own. I'm scared to do anything on my own. It's funny. So Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician, I don't want to be a quote machine on your show, but I love the quotes.
But it just came to mind, and I want to share sincerely, and it made me think of Blaise Pascal, the French mathematician. He said, most of a person's miseries derive from their inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And I'm not speaking to you, Abby, in terms of, I'm just saying, you know, a lot of us, when we're alone, we pick up our phone because we don't feel comfortable with ourselves.
Yeah.
And yet that primary relationship with ourselves determines our relationship with our family, with our friends, with our money, with our craft, with our neighbors, with the world. And as we can be more comfortable alone and get to know ourselves and start to build intimacy with our gifts and our talents and be less insecure. I feel the same way sometimes alone in a restaurant.
Yeah.
But it's a great exercise because as you move through one fear, you often move through many other fears. And just sitting alone, getting used to being maybe in your apartment and not having music and getting rid of the drugs of choice and escape routes and just being comfortable with yourself. I mean, anyway, you asked about things that you could do to start this path of finding the wealth money can't buy. I would say a few things. Every 7 days, a ZDD, which is a zero device day, a digital Sabbath, is powerful. We don't want to be a cyber zombie. Here's some of the latest research. On an average day, the average human being is spending 4.37 hours on their phone. That amounts to almost 3 months every year watching videos and often chasing trivial pursuits. So a lot of us say, well, I don't have time to build a business. I don't have time to find true love. I don't have time to get fit. I don't have time to find inner peace. And by the way, serenity is the new luxury, I believe.
Of course.
But we have 3 months we're on the phone. Did you know that most human beings, 75% of human beings, according to latest research, check their phone within the first 10 minutes of the day. That is sacred time for yourself to set the tone of your day, to calibrate your mindset. So a digital 1 day a week, 24 hours, take your phone and throw it in the river, metaphorically speaking, and be with your family or be alone or go to an art gallery or read or go for a walk. Second thing, MVP. Meditation, visualization, and prayer. Everyone is looking for the tactic that is transformational. It's changed my life. It's changed the life of my clients. 45 minutes every morning. First thing, meditate. We can get into the dynamics, but meditating, visualizing the life you want to have, visualizing you being confident, not insecure, etc. Visualizing the person you want to be. And then prayer. And prayer, it's so simple. And I deeply believe every prayer is heard. And if you're not religious and it's not necessarily religious, then call it scientific prayer. But prayer works. So MVP is a great way to start your mornings. Third thing I would say is exercise first thing in the morning is powerful. We can get into the science behind it. But I think one of the best things you could possibly do is to get into your fittest self.
Yes.
Because it really makes a profound difference.
It has a complete knock-on effect. Like we've been doing this in our house lately, getting up before the kids go to school. Gym. You've got that time to yourself so you can think, you can plan your day, what you've got to do. You feel better. So then you don't want to eat crap. You don't want to drink alcohol because you're feeling so good. And then you sleep better. It just has a positive knock-on effect. And it's something that I would definitely encourage, but it's hard to start. It's hard to start it. So for any of our listeners, how do you make that change? What was the first step into doing that?
So it's funny you say that because in the growth section of the book, one of the chapters is the best way to start is to start. And I was in Dubai and a radio interviewer asked me that question. She said, so this is great. Where do we start? And I think the question itself is loaded with complexity. It's not that hard. Where do you start training for the marathon? You get up off the couch and you walk around the block. Where do you start writing the book that'll change the world? You put down your you put down the phone, you put down the video, so to speak, and you write the first page.
Yeah.
Where do I start to find the love of my life? You're at the avocado section in the grocery store. You walk over to the person and go, are these avocados not amazing?
Yeah.
Where do you start learning to meditate? You find a video, a guided meditation, and you start. So Lao Tzu said it really well. I don't know why I'm sharing so many quotes today, but
You're obviously feeling I need these kind of quotes.
I think I need them. We teach what we need. We teach what we most need to learn. But Lao Tzu said it really well. He said the 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step.
Yeah.
And we often think it's really hard. And the key is small, daily, seemingly insignificant improvements, when done consistently over time, lead to stunning results. You make the start, what I call in my work, the micro wins and the tiny triumphs.
Yeah.
And you do them every day, because consistency is the mother of mastery. And you remember that your days are your life in miniature. So how you live each day, the days become weeks, the weeks become months, the months become years, the years become a lifetime.
Yes.
So just compartmentalize your day and try to do those little wins every day steadily. And with consistency, those will become a tsunami of victory that you'll be very proud of at the end of your life.
And I feel like I'm focusing on these steps a lot, but that was when I was reading the book. It's something that really stuck with me. I don't know if I'm like, my mind, but it's how do we know which one to prioritize? Like, what is the most important? Is it growth, community, family?
That's a super point. Which of these 8 forms of wealth?
Like, how do we find our purpose in life?
Sure. Where do we start? Which one's most important? I would say all of the 8 forms of wealth work together. And to your point, when we start doing these things, it becomes a upward spiral of success. You join the 5 a.m. club. Well, that gives you a win that builds confidence. Then you do the morning workout when you don't feel like doing it. That gives you energy. It creates a pharmacy of mastery in your brain. Let's go to the science. Exercise releases dopamine, norepinephrine, which builds focus, serotonin, which makes you feel happier, BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which allows your brain to process better. All of a sudden, you finished a workout. Of course, you feel like you're on fire. Yeah. That allows you to have a better breakfast. It allows you to spend time with your family in the morning. Then you're better at work. Because you're better at work, you feel better at home. You turn off the TV perhaps, and you read a book, or you have a conversation with your family, and slowly you start creating this amazing upward spiral of success. So where do we start? We start, which of the 8 forms of wealth are more important? They're all...
You think that's a personal thing to each individual who's on this kind of journey?
I think the 8 forms of wealth are all needed to find true wealth. I mean, wellness, absolutely essential. Service, absolutely essential. Growth, absolutely essential. Craft, seeing like a job is only a job if you see it as a job. Even if you're, I shouldn't say even if you're a grave digger or a street sweeper, but doing it like Michelangelo painted, because there's dignity in all labor, and all work is a chance for you to express your gifts and make a difference in other people's lives. I think that's very powerful. So I think all 8 are important.
But going back to, all those jobs that you've just listed there, if someone is happy, sweeping the streets, that they're winning. I think the society forces into, you must go to school, you must go to university, you must study this job that you don't even know what it is, go on this course that you don't know what it is, to have a job as sitting in an office on a computer for 10 hours a day doing some boring stuff that doesn't fulfill you or make you happy. Like, what advice would you give to those people to make that change and do something they love? Because I think everyone's held back by, I've got to do this job because I've got to pay my bills, I've got to pay my rent. How do they do it?
Well, the first thing I would say is winning at someone else's version of winning is losing.
Yeah.
I think true winning is following your own drumbeat, even if the world thinks you're crazy. I think true winning is saying, here's my scoreboard, and here's what's important to me. Yeah. Let's say it's family. Let's say it's having whatever job. It could be an artist or a coder or a yoga teacher. And my family wanted me to be an accountant, and society says I need to be a billionaire or whatever to be successful, and have all these followers online and a big house and a fast car. And I don't have these things, but I like who I am, and I like my life, and deep inside, here are my values, and here's my version of success, and you do you, you are a winner. I mean, I have mentored so many billionaires who on the way home from work drink too much, worry too much. Their children won't talk to them. They have all the toys in the world, but they lack inner peace. That is poverty.
That is poverty.
Bob Marley said it really well. He was asked in an interview, Abby, he was asked, so are you rich? And he goes, well, what's rich? And the interviewer said, well, do you have a lot of possessions?
This is the quote, the only quote I know that you've said so far today. I know this one.
And he said, are you rich? And Bob Marley said, well, what's rich? And the interviewer said, well, do you have a lot of possessions? And Bob Marley, I'm going to try to channel Bob Marley, but he goes, possessions make you rich? I don't have that kind of rich. My riches is life.
Yeah.
And that is really the through line through the book, which is there are all these things that are available to us that we could be doing that we're missing because too many of us have been programmed to chase the wrong things.
Can we please talk about the 10,000 dinners? Because this is something I loved in your book.
Absolutely. A great question. So this would be in the third form of wealth, which is family. And one of the chapters is your choice of mate is 90% of your joy, which is, I think, something worth playing with. And then there's that chapter, ask the 10,000 dinners question. So I was reading a newspaper and they were interviewing Ayesha Vardag, one of the UK's top divorce lawyers.
Yes.
And they said, look, Ayesha, you have seen so many relationships fall apart. Could you tell us what you think makes a great relationship? So she said, number one, separate bedrooms.
Really?
She did. And
Why?
number two, I don't know.
I couldn't bear that.
And number two, she said, 10,000 dinners. And the interviewer said, what do you mean by 10,000 dinners? Please explain. And she said, well, looks fade, lust can dissolve, but if you can see yourself having 10,000 dinners with that person, keep them close because great love is hard to find.
That makes me want to cry. I was actually discussing this with my husband, funny enough, last night, and I was like, your looks have faded, you look old as hell, but I would have a million dinners with you. And I mean that. And I don't know if it's a thing as you get older or, you just, in the industry we're in, you just meet so many people you don't like. It's kind of, when you meet someone you do like, it's so important to keep them close and make them important part of your life. Like, your three fantastic friends and that community, going back to the community. I think it's, I don't know.
I would say you're absolutely right. As I get older, I have far less patience with people who bring down my energy.
Yeah.
I have far less patience with people who I don't vibe with. I have far less patience, or I don't allow into my life people who discourage me and bring me down. And people can say, well, how do you know which people those are? I would say, trust your joy. Yeah. I would say joy is joy is like a GPS. So there are these people, and I'm sure you've experienced them, we all have, and you're with them, and probably subconsciously they don't even know they're doing it, but they just say things that make you feel bad.
Yeah.
And those are people I would encourage everyone watching and everyone listening. Release those people from your life and watch what happens to your life. And then people could say, why? And I would say, first of all, reason, season, lifetime. It's a great relationship rule, which is some people come into your life for a reason, some people come into your life for a season, and a few people get to be in your life for a lifetime. And then people say, well, okay, if I'm going to release someone who makes me feel bad, what if they're my friend for
or family? What if it's,
or family? What if it's mom? What if it's grandma? What if it's what I would say is love them from afar.
Yeah.
And practice selective association. Maybe if it's a family member, rather than seeing them every day and texting them 3 times a day, see them once a week. But I think you can live your richest life or be around toxic people. You don't get to do both.
And what if you're your own toxic person? If you're feeding yourself with negative thoughts and putting yourself down, being the kind of bad fairy on your own shoulder.
Well, I would say that we all have a shadow side. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, called it the shadow side. I think we have a heroic self and an egoic self.
Yeah.
And our heroic self, Abby, is who we truly are. Like, we are naturally, natively creative. We have gifts. Each of us on the planet has gifts that no one else has.
Yeah.
Most of us don't know what that 1 or 2 or 3 gifts are, so we don't polish them until they shine. Every single one of us is brave inside. We are resilient. We are stronger than we know. We are loving. So that's our heroic self. But as we go through life, we experience micro trauma and macro trauma. Life hurts us. We receive programming to be average and limited. And this process of forgetting who we are unfolds. And so we end up as our egoic selves. And that is what you're saying. It's like we become fearful and we become scared and the world isn't a safe place and we dim ourselves. And so I think in many ways, the path of personal development is not transformation, it's self-remembering.
Yeah.
Remembering who we were before the world taught us to hate and play small, et cetera. And in the book, I have hundreds of tools that will help us if we're feeling bad about ourselves. The first thing I would say is we all have a shadow self. And the second thing I would say is start today to do something to start releasing that negativity. And it's amazing how far you can get in a short period of time.
So in the book, chapter 17, your haters are your helpers, because everyone has experienced trauma, whether it's your mum shouting at when you were a little girl or something, losing a child or something really horrific. How can we turn our traumas into a positive and work with them instead of against them?
Well, you're right. So that chapter, your hurters are your helpers. I believe that the people who hurt you the most can actually teach you the most. I believe that the people who break your heart are the same people who, if you choose, can help you open your heart.
Yeah.
Rumi said it well, keep breaking your heart over and over until it opens. And so I will say personally, it's the difficulties that have brought me to my knees. Those are the difficulties that taught me whatever wisdom I have. My greatest troubles taught me how strong I am.
Yeah.
Cracked, it's suffering, if you exploit it and leverage it, can help you become a much greater person and even a more creative person. I was once on an airplane to Paris sitting next to an artist, and he said to me, I pick relationship partners who break my heart. And I said, why would you possibly do that? And he said, because when I'm heartbroken, I do my best work.
Yeah.
And so if you look at the suffering artist, it's like they have such intimacy with life and reality because they're not in their head, they're in their heart. And so I think our hurters are our helpers.
Can you tell our listeners how we can turn these painful experiences into opportunities and growth, linking it back to growth?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is just realizing that every problem carries with it a gorgeous opportunity, as simple as it sounds, and practicing that belief until it becomes a default. Like, what does our world teach us? I think you'd probably agree, Abby, that, there's a problem, run away from it. I'm suggesting if there's a business problem, a personal problem, a spiritual problem, run towards it, because problems are nothing more than growth in wolf's clothing. But we forget that. So use the difficulty. If you're having a business problem right now, ask yourself, what's the opportunity here?
Yeah.
Having a personal problem right now, how can I use this to become braver, stronger, faster, wiser, recreate my life? If you want tools, I've mentioned MVP, very powerful in a difficult time. In a difficult time, finding a mentor, someone you can talk to talk about how you're feeling, releases it, is very powerful. Journaling is a key part of my day. So if you're going through a painful time, processing through the pain by writing it out on a blank piece of paper so you don't swallow it.
Yeah.
And so you metabolize it, because to release a wound, you need to feel a wound. What does society say? Oh, you're having a bad time? Be happy, happy, happy. Get busy. What terrible advice.
Yeah.
You're having a hard time? You're feeling shame, anger, disappointment, sorrow, frustration? Acknowledge it, notice it in the body, write about it so you metabolize it and start the process of releasing it. And if you do that, pain is actually going to purify you, and then you will move ahead to positive thinking, but you won't have this, what I call field of hurt, subconsciously affecting your creativity, productivity, performance, and happiness. I don't know if that made sense, but
It makes complete sense.
we swallow the pain.
We do.
We swallow the anger. It builds up day by day. We become what I call in a book a resentment collector. And we wonder why we don't have great health, great energy, great creativity, and why we don't live these beautiful lives. We are creating that because of who we are.
So in your book, you talk about a top tip for you is journaling. You know, get a pad, write down your thoughts, you know, get it out and not keep it all bottled up.
Exactly.
Journaling, meditation, visualization. How dangerous is seeking perfection?
Yes and no. I know that's a strange way of answering your question. I would just go yes and no. Perfectionism is unhealthy. And yet I acknowledge that. And often perfectionism comes from...
Well, society are telling us, you know, you've got to excel in this. You've got to be the best at that. Is it okay to not be, you know, winning in every field?
Well, one of the first chapters in the growth section, the first form of wealth is it's okay to be sloppy.
Yeah, I love that.
And I think life is a series of seasons. There's a time to have your rituals and routines and your checklists and to work hard and push your magic into the world. And then there's a time to pull back. And it's not necessarily a 3-month season. It could be even in one day. You're trying to be excellent. Maybe later in the day, you're a little sloppy. And guess what? That's okay. We are not machines. We are human beings. We are human beings. And I think a great life has excellence in it and messiness in it. And so I think perfectionism is unhealthy. You're absolutely right. This is the world of perfect abs and all those perfection things that make us feel bad. Having acknowledged that perfectionism is unhealthy, I haven't met a master who wasn't a perfectionist. I just have to be honest with you.
And are they happy?
Well, no, but their game isn't happiness.
Yeah.
Their game... So when I mentor the elite athletes, when I mentor the world-class business builders, entertainment royalty, are they happy? Mostly no. But their game isn't happiness. The elite athletes, for example, or the super entrepreneurs, they're not interested in happiness. They are interested in mastery. And so I think about Michelangelo, 4 years to create the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. I don't think Michelangelo was interested in happiness. I think he wanted to push beauty and magic into the world. I don't know if Steve Jobs was happy, but I don't think his game was happiness. His game was world class. And
people must think when you are mentoring these people, billionaires, CEOs, elite athletes, you know, surely they've got it all. Why do they need your help? You know, they're rich, you know, they've got everything from our point of view kind of thing.
That's exactly what the Wealth Money Can't Buy is all about. They're rich of money and material things, but many of them have poverty of peace, joyfulness, family connections, purpose. Many of these people suffer from imposter syndrome. They have what looks like everything, and people look up to them and put them on pedestals, and they just feel they don't deserve it. They have deservability issues.
Where does that come from?
Well, okay, where does it come from? Well, I think wherever you go, there you are. That's the Zen proverb. So if you're insecure at the beginning, you'll be insecure on the mountaintop. And so I think the point really is, again, I want to be really clear. The fifth form of wealth in the book is money. There's nothing wrong with money. There's nothing wrong with nice things. Personally, I'd rather stay in a nice hotel room than a flea bag hotel. So
Yeah,
there's
me too.
nothing, right? So it's the fifth form of wealth. There's 25 chapters on how the billionaires do it, and I've deconstructed their mindsets and habits, etc. But there are a lot of rich people, and money is all they have.
Mm.
And so what I'm really trying to do with this book is remind people there are 7 other forms of wealth that when we feed them, we find we are not only successful in the world, we're successful with ourselves. I mean, what's the point of getting to the last hour of your last day? And you survey how you've lived, and you say, wow, I was successful in the world. I did what society said I should do. I made a fair amount of money. I got lots of social media likes. I won the race the world told me to win. And I'm completely empty.
Yes.
I mean, Leo Tolstoy wrote a short story called The Death of Ivan Ilyich. Ivan Ilyich got to the end of his life and he said, what if my whole life was a lie?
Oh, God.
It's pretty, to me, that's the definition of heartbreak. You get to the end of your life and you say, wow, I lived my neighbor's life, not my life.
Yeah. I love how in the book you talk about eating your last supper today. Can you talk me through that?
Well, I think as human beings, we are a species of great postponers. We fall into a cognitive trap of thinking we have all the time in the world when even the longest life is a very short ride. And before we know it, even the longest living person will be dust in an urn on a mantle next to some football trophies over a fireplace. And so that chapter, eat your last supper first, is an idea to connect you to your mortality and remind you of the shortness of life. Ask yourself, what do I want as my last supper? And eat it today. But the larger point is remind yourself that life is short. And so, okay, you want to do something? Don't worry so much about rejection. Don't hold back the love you want to give. Don't hold back being the person that you want to be. Because society often says, well, don't talk about mortality. It's negative. I actually think talking about mortality is super positive because once you really realize that life is short and your days are numbered, you live to the point. You don't fool around with your phone. You don't spend time with people who bring you down. You don't dabble in trivial pursuits. If I'm lucky, I'm very healthy. Yet, Abby, if I'm lucky, I have 25 summers. This is my 25 summers decision matrix. When I think about an opportunity or how I'm spending my days or I receive an invitation, I ask myself, okay, I have 25 summers left.
That's so scary, isn't it, when you think of it like that?
25 summers. Imagine it, or you have 30 summers or 40 Christmases. That's, I think, a great way to look at life. And then you say, my time is short. I better do the things that are most important to me versus saying, oh, I'll do it, in some idealized future when I have more time and the kids are older.
Yeah. My dad and husband are my dad lives like a simple life and he is the happiest man literally on the planet. He gets up, he does like a 5-mile walk, then he comes back, has some lunch, potters about, meets his friend, has a pint, goes home, has his dinner, watch TV and goes to bed. And he does that every day. And he's like, if I died tomorrow, I've got such a happy life. I've had such a happy life. And the same with my husband. He was like, if I died tomorrow, I've had a great life. I don't feel that way. And that kind of, that no regrets kind of thing, or, I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. And I think recognizes that makes you change how you live each day and you want to better yourself.
I think, you've said a few things that are already germinating within me. First of all, I think it was so wonderful what you said about your husband, that when I talked about the 10,000 dinners rule, you said, I'd like to spend $1 million. I mean, that's
true.
It's extraordinarily special and inspiring for me. And the second thing you said about your father, which makes the point, which is simplicity is one of the richest forms of life. And then the third thing that I'm hearing you saying that's really, I'm gonna really consider it over tonight and over the next few days, but I think that's profound, which is if you say, if I checked out tomorrow, I've lived a great life, that's rich.
That is super rich.
That's super rich.
Super rich.
What a great way to ask yourself, am I living my truest life and my finest life?
So in the book, you talk about go-go's for a year. Can you talk me through that?
That is the 7th form of wealth out of the 8 forms of wealth, adventure. So when we were kids, we really were, we had a sparkle in our eye. And often life's challenges prevent us from that sense of adventure. And we become adults and we've lost that sense of mystery and awe.
Spontaneity
and
as well.
spontaneity
Yeah.
and awe and wonder. And so Go Ghost for a Year is a chapter that says, take 1 year and go to the place you have always dreamed of going. Could be Vietnam, could be Tokyo, could be Medellin, could be Sweden, could be one of my favorite places, South Africa.
I love South Africa.
I love South Africa.
I've got South African in me, actually.
Oh, I didn't know. In you?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
my nan's dad.
What a great country.
It's one of my favorite places.
The energy there.
Yeah, it's fab.
It's really.
It makes you want to be healthy when you go there, I think. Just this, I don't know, just a feeling. We absolutely love it there. I can't wait to go back. We haven't been there since COVID. But anyway, sorry, going off on a...
No, I'm with you. I love South Africa. So pick a place you've always wanted to go. Take a year out of your life. Leave your phone at home, figuratively speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Bring the classics. Learn to meditate. Take long walks. Get to know yourself again. Ask yourself, what are my top 5 values? And leave the noise so you can hear the signal. And then come back into the world born anew to live out the rest of your life on your own terms and the way you really want to live it. And if you can't do it for a year, because of course, not everyone can do it for a year. I hear you. Then do it for 6 months. If you can't do it for 6 months, do it for a month. Can't do it for a month, do it for a week. If you can't go ghost without your devices, without the noise for a week, do it for a day.
Yeah. My friend often does that, and it's getting too much and she feels unappreciated in the house. She just leaves her husband with the kids and go, bye. And then she's gone for 5 days and then come back and everyone appreciates her and she feels more grounded and happy and ready to get back into a normal life.
Well, I just think we live in a hustle and grind culture. And I think even when it comes to work, we forget that rest and recovery, elite performance and high productivity without deep recovery is an empty victory.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, look at the greatest athletes. They have an on season and an off season. Look at the greatest artists. They have times when they are painting and doing a lot, and then they have times when they're doing nothing and sleeping and having 5-hour dinners with their friends. And those times are when you not only refuel the well of inspiration, but science actually says when we are resting, did you know your brain is almost as active as when you're doing? And it's when we are resting and active resting and having fun that our brain cements memories, makes new connections, and renews itself and refuels itself.
You talk about laughter in the book. How important is laughter? And it makes you live longer. I think that is so important. And sorry, just going back to the rest. I think a lot of people feel guilty for taking that 5 minutes. When I have a day off and I just want to sit in bed, I don't sit down unless I'm doing this podcast or my other podcast or I'm in bed, and when I put all my kids to school and I have a day off and want to just sit and do nothing, I feel so guilty. I just cannot relax. And I know it is so important. And everyone's like, listen to your body, take that time, chill out. And I know so many people who are like me who just can't do that. What advice would you give to them or top tip to be able to do that?
Well, I would say a few things. I would say without rest and recovery and fun and real recreation, you will be busy being busy versus doing your best work and living your finest life. Secondly, I have met a lot.
Exactly how I feel.
Well, so rest will make the other parts of your life so much better. But our society has programmed us so deeply to feel shame and to feel guilty if we're not doing
lazy.
or lazy. Well, rest and recovery is necessary for great creativity and peak productivity. Second thing I would say is I've actually met a lot of people who didn't listen to their bodies and they become sick.
Yeah.
And they say, wow, my body was telling me a few years ago to rest and not work as much and not be going. I didn't listen, and now I have a chronic illness. So I think your body whispers, and if you don't listen to it, I think your body screams.
How important do you think diet is in relation to all of this?
Well, I believe wellness is the second form of wealth, and I think wellness has to do with rest, exercise. There's a chapter called Practice the Naked Sunbathing Rule. So some sunbathing is important. There's a chapter called Take a Bath in a Forest. So
I've done the naked sunbathing once and ended up on the front of the newspaper. So I might give that one a miss.
maybe not the best idea.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
No, it's not. It was not. It was awful.
Probably traumatic.
It was in St. Bart's, and yeah, horrendous picture. But anyway.
But I think part of wellness is absolutely having a good diet. I'm not giving medical advice, but for me, fasting has been extraordinarily helpful. The science talks about caloric restriction at autophagy, which is the state the body goes into in fasted state, which is essentially a cellular cleaning mechanism. Fasting releases BDNF, so that's why sometimes when you fast, you're more creative and you have so much energy and mental cognition.
Surge.
Yes. So I think diet is absolutely important for energy, for feeling good. Your moods are affected by a great diet. So, and I would just also say, eat less food, get more done. Eat less food, feel better.
So you've got quite a controversial section in your book. To become a yes person. You know, most people say, do not be a yes person. Why is saying yes beneficial to us?
So our culture looks down on the yes person, the yes man, the yes woman, the yes person. What I'm suggesting in that chapter is become a yes person. And it comes from a meeting I had with the son of a very well-known speaker. And the speaker is now in his 80s.
Wow.
And his son said, he's in his 80s, but he says yes to everything. You want him to go here? You want him to be on this show? You want him to do this podcast? You want him to do this event? Yes, yes, yes. And so the point I was trying to make there is, oh, how wonderful our lives would be if we said yes more often.
My kids say it to me all the time. It's my little daughter, Liberty, she's 8. She said, Mom, can we have a yes day? Where you just say yes to everything I ask. I was like, no. It's so
I don't think that's the answer she was looking for.
Definitely not.
No. Yeah, I just think saying yes to life. If someone says, oh, I'm going to Machu Picchu for a week to see the Incan ruins, say yes. If someone says, if usually you eat Italian food and someone says, I'm going to the new Indian restaurant down the street, say yes. If someone says, read this book on psychology or history, and usually you read about coding, say yes. If someone says, watch this film that has nothing to do with your interests, say yes. If someone says, you're looking for love, there's someone who I think you need to meet,
say yes.
Say yes. You might end up having 1 million dinners with them.
Exactly. I like that. I think we should end on what is a perfect moment to you, and what advice could you give our listeners to live their wealthiest life? So
there was a CEO of KPMG, as you know, the global accounting behemoth, and his name was Eugene O'Kelly, and he was a top corporate titan, got to the top of the mountain. And one day, Abby, he went into his doctor's office to receive the results of a routine medical. And his doctor came back with an expression on his face you never want to see on your doctor's face. Long story short, he was given 90 days approximately left to live. He had an inoperable brain tumor. And confronted with his mortality, he decided to use the skills he'd learned in business to reverse engineer his last 90 days. Very profound what he did, like very inspiring and beautiful. And he realized on reflection, in all his years as a corporate heavyweight, he had never taken his wife to lunch.
Oh my God.
He realized in all his years in business, he had missed Christmas concerts with his daughter. He had never taken long walks in Central Park with his great friends. And so his last 90 days, he said to himself, he said, I want to become a perfect moment creator. And that's what he did. He started creating intentionally perfect moments for the people he loved and the people around him and for himself. And that inspired me to do my best to become a perfect moment creator with my family, with my friends, with my team, but also with myself. Just something as simple as maybe walking through a park and taking a moment and noticing the glories of nature. Or, in this middle of the book tour, I went to an art gallery and I spent an hour looking at magnificent art. I think communing with art makes us more sensitive, and I think great art makes us more human. And what I encourage in that chapter of the book is take the time to be a perfect moment creator. So you create these memories. I think memories are more valuable than even money in many ways. And when you make money, of course, we all have bills to pay and responsibilities, but invest any money you might have on some memories. And it doesn't mean that you have to spend a lot of money. It just means look for perfect moments.
I think the perfect moment for me is definitely to create memories and using your minutes wisely. I just want to thank you so much, Robin. And I'm, a bit starstruck by you today because I think your book is fantastic. It's definitely changed my life and the way I think. And I cannot wait to put more of your tools and advice into practice in my own life. And I think you're going to help so many people on this planet to do the same thing. So thank you so much.
Well, it's been a true pleasure. And I just want to appreciate you not only for the impact you're having with this podcast. I know it's new, but just for your humility and your generosity and the way you've treated me. It really means a lot. And I've really enjoyed our time together.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.